Hello and welcome to Inktology. Today we're going to be drawing Bishamonten, the Japanese god of war and the Buddhist protector of shrines and palaces and temples. He's also the god of wealth. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Josh and I'm an illustrator. And on the channel we draw mythology and religions and gods and all kinds of fun fantasies that pertain to the myths and religions of the world. And if you're new, please don't forget to subscribe, like, hit the notification button. This is a fun channel of drawing and sketching and just helping each other out in the arts while learning something about the gods. Bishamonten, the Japanese god of war. Now, he's one of the 7 lucky gods, and he protects this great treasure pagoda of Buddhist offerings and things. And if you've ever been to Japan or been to any of these temples, you might see one of these fearsome looking gods in front of the temple holding these spears and some kind of object, looking pretty terrifying. And they're meant to be, because they're supposed to be protectors and ward off anyone who's coming to be a threat to the temple and the god. But Bishamonten is not an original Japanese god. He actually comes from the Indian god Vaisravana, which is practically the god of wealth. Now, the name Bishamonten, or Bishamon, is translated into guardian of the 100 million heavenly gates. Quite a long name, but one that represents who he is and what his job is. And his other name, Tamonten, which means listening to many teachings, talks about his role as also being someone who is wise and a protector of the Buddhist preachings. One of the main reasons I chose Bishamonten to draw is because he looked really cool. Every time I go into a Japanese temple, he is just standing there at the gates holding a giant spear, in one hand, and then he's holding a small little pagoda in the other. I didn't draw the pagoda, didn't want to, but you get the idea of what he does. And when you go to temples, you'll see this. His fierce look and his facial expressions actually are dependent on the artist who's crafting the statue or the paintings that represent him. But oftentimes his face is not a happy one. He's quite angry. He is about to destroy, because he is the god of war, and he's the only warrior who engages in violence as a god. Now, I'm using my mechanical pencil. It's a 2H, actually a little bit harder. And I'm just sketching in, and this is usually what I would do when I'm doing an ink drawing. I use a lighter pencil to kind of get in all the details and leave room for the black ink to overtake this light pencil. But then I thought, you know what? I haven't done a pencil drawing in a long time, and I've been wanting to use these Mars really dark black pencils made for realism. Just kind of give my hand in it and get back into some drawing with pencils. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm kind of just practicing doing the light first layer, and this is kind of a bad technique, actually. I don't know if this is something that I would promote too much, because what you're seeing right here is this lead is actually pushing into the paper a little bit. Now I'm drawing as light as possible right here to shade, but there's moments where I'm doing this. And if you know anything about lead and the mechanical pencils, there's a little black dot right there by the tip of that, and you can see it. That's because the sharpness of the lead actually caught onto the paper and left a mark and dug into it. And then when I drew over it, it just layered more lead on top. Now I have a black little dot that I need to pull off, and I'll show you how to pull that off later when drawing and to get a real clean shade. When you see professionals or these beautiful pencil drawings that have perfectly smooth gradients and lead across the paper, they lightly put that on and slowly put that on, and every little detail of over shading or dots of darkness they will pull off with an eraser, and they'll level out from there all the shades of gray or the pencil work that they're doing. And that's something that I'm used to, but with this technique of using this pencil where it's kind of sharp on one end and the other, where I use the one end to do details and the other end to kind of shade. And if you're an artist, you know what I'm talking about. You know your pencil well enough to know which side is kind of sharp. If you twist it a little bit, it'll turn into a really sharp detailed line, or very smooth. Now, Bishamonten is kind of like that god who is able to protect those who worship the Buddha or the Bodhisattva for Buddhism and reaching enlightenment. He's kind of like the god who sits at the gate and makes sure that all the followers are blessed and taken care of and protected, as well as, the money that goes into the temple and these locations where they serve the Buddha and this practice, they are protected and taken care of. They're like number one, and he's like their guardian angel in a sense, or their guardian god, which is very cool because he's got this really cool staff that I get to draw. And though I didn't draw his one hand holding the divine treasure house pagoda, this golden thing with all these gifts in it, kind of representing the rewards for his followers and the faithful, because he is the god of fortune as much as he's the god of war, right? So this kind of needs to be balanced out. I did not draw that. I drew him with an awesome staff. Now, for inking, I'm not going to be inking like I said earlier. I'm going to be using these Mars Lumograph Blacks. Really good pencils. If you're able to get them, they get dark. Now, let's begin. When inking a drawing like this, I wouldn't have issues with the paper's tooth or texture being something that takes away from the art. Here, because I've drawn with a 2H and I kind of press hard, you can see here, my black pencil is actually making these dark marks. You can see a little black dot right there above my pencil mark. And this is because the lead is catching on to these different parts of the paper where I've either dug into it with the other pencil and it's made a crevice or a canyon, and I'm just drawing into that, and the direction of it. The paper is such a light paper that it just tore into it, and you're going to see I'm going to have to shade pretty hard and come up with different techniques and directions of shading this darker pencil on top in order to hide all these little blemishes, or use my eraser, which I'll do later. And this is kind of my way of practicing as an artist to see if I can push the contrast. One of the issues of my art skill when I was growing up in school was my teacher was always yelling at me, Josh, darker, darker, lighter. You have no contrast. Most of my drawings look like this 2H pencil drawing without what I'm doing right now. So it's just very flat, though it kind of looked cool with the details. It didn't pop, it didn't stand out, it didn't have anything. So pushing your blacks further and bringing out your highlights in your drawings will really draw the eye to certain key points of your character, as well as, bring depth to your art. And you can clearly see the lines that are drawn over and underneath this his outfit. You can see the lines are moving because of the terrible job I did with the 2H pencil, and I will spend the rest of this drawing trying to recover any of that. Now, the story goes that Bishamonten lives halfway down Mount Sumeru, and this is an important peak to the Buddhist spiritual cosmology. And for the Japanese, they have created their own adaptations to different gods that were pulled from India and China and a lot of Buddhism. And you'll see that as their Shinto religion begins to change throughout the centuries, that different gods take on different looks and attributes, of course, to the region as well as the religion. Bishamonten, of course, being the deity Vaisravana from India, has a lot of those still traits from that Buddhism that comes from that area. So the changes aren't vast, but they are there. For example, Vaisravana is one of the 4 heavenly kings, rules the north, where he oversees the wealthy and all the cities and things of that nature, and the people. He too is also the defender of Buddha. Anyone who tries to destroy or come and attack the Buddhist teachings or anything of that nature through the religion, he's there with his spear to whoop some butt. Kind of like the Buddha's personal bodyguard, who's always angry, I think. And religion is kind of cool that way. And this is one of the reasons why I draw all these characters, is because the character Vaisravana morphs and changes as it goes into China and becomes Bishamonten, and that god now takes on different attributes. Mahayana Buddhism spread the worship of Bishamonten, and it eventually got to its point in Japan, which is quite cool. Now, I may be butchering the names of some of this, but please forgive me. I don't speak all the languages, and I try my best. Now, from what I read, in 1467 to 1600, there was a warring states period, and during this period, having a god of fortune and of war come into the play for Shinto or the Japanese culture was kind of accepted quite easily, because who wouldn't want a god of fortune and of war during the warring state period? But Bishamonten resembles a lot of Hachiman as the Shintoist gods and kami and yokai. As you can see in my previous video where I drew the yokai and kami and one of the gods of cherry blossoms. So definitely check out that video. It's very fun, and that's an inking instead of a full pencil drawing. Okay, now as I use my 6B pencil to really push those darks and shade in the rest of this, I'm starting to run into that same issue as I had before, where the lead in graphite is piling on top of these little parts where the pencil has dug into the paper or built up. And now I'm going in with a putty eraser to pull those little spots off just very delicately. Now this doesn't look like it's going to do much because it's very soft putty, but it does a lot. You want to just make a little pinpoint with that putty and tap on those little spots and they'll pull right off. And it may be a little bit more effort, but you'll see what happens. The shading becomes smooth and organized, and it becomes a full texture instead of all these different spots and blots everywhere. But definitely take your time. This is a technique that you'll use in university when you're in art school. So definitely something I took and found most resourceful from art school as a technique. A good practice is to draw a sphere and a ball and shade the ball, but then also when you come into this situation issue, use this technique and it'll help your ball become very smooth. Now some of this isn't recoverable at all because I was roughly sketching in really hard with my pencil beforehand, so it's going to just have that damage already applied, some lines already there that I can't erase, but I will go ahead and do my best, and this is a technique that will help. Now you can see right here with the close-up, you can see the lines going vertical and actually messing with the pencil that I'm putting on top because there's cut lines in there, and that's sad to me. But if you press hard enough, you can get it to kind of go away, but you're going to be damaging your paper even more if you push hard with this new pencil. So light layers, keep on going, different boldnesses and lead, and you'll get there. Bishamonten can also be seen with a ring of fire behind him. You may have seen some statues with this god very angry with these, like a couple fireballs in a ring right behind his head, which is very cool and scary. And his powers kind of involved protecting any kind of life-threatening illnesses or even expelling demons of plague and such, and protecting the emperor, you know, bringing riches, wealth, and good fortune to even children. Real quick tip, I'm moving the paper back and forwards here, showing you that there's a shine and a shimmer in certain areas. That's because in these certain specific areas, I drew with a Blackwing pencil instead of the Staedtler Lumograph pencil. And this creates layers of lead on top of each other, which would create a shine and shimmer. So if you don't want to do that, take it nice and slow and use the same pencils. And in some temples, you'll see Bishamonten and Temonten across from each other, but there'll be like standing on top of a demon with their foot or heel, or have their spear at the demon's head. And this is kind of a way of showing them what they're doing and what they're preventing from coming into the temple. His lance, his spear, is actually something that eliminates and destroys evil influence and suppresses any kind of enemy that comes against the Buddhism, which is really cool. And the design of it has a bunch of different attributes to it, and I try to keep that from a previous drawing that I saw, a painting, an old ancient painting of Bishamonten. I like the idea that the spear isn't this hard piece of weapon, but has a spiritual attribute to it that must have different powers. As for the pagoda, actually I think the pagoda carries the body of the ashes of the Buddha, like the teeth and the hair and all that kind of stuff. This is what I've heard. I don't know if this is very true. I need to study more on this practice and belief. But for Bishamonten, his beliefs and his religion and cult is vastly different depending on who's serving and how he's portrayed as a different god, from the Indian portrayal to the Chinese or any other country's way of serving Bishamonten, or what they have named him. But he is the god of war, so if you need protection, you call upon him. And if you need wealth and good fortune, you call upon him. So he's a pretty cool dude. Maybe an attitude problem, but very good God to keep around. But thank you guys for watching. My name is Josh. And please, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button. And, watch the videos that I put out before of other gods and mythology. Let me know what you think. And don't forget, if you're creative, go create.